All right, let's dive into Ephesians 6. We're going to go deeper than just reading it. We're really unpacking this ancient wisdom and how it connects to our lives today.
It's fascinating, really, how Ephesians 6 blends practical advice with, these deep spiritual metaphors.
So we've got the verses themselves and some amazing analysis and study guides. It's like having a guidebook to unlock all the cool stuff in this chapter. We'll be looking at families, workplaces, and even that whole armor of God thing.
What's really cool is that we're going to uncover how these old instructions can still offer guidance for us now. It doesn't even matter what you believe.
Okay, let's jump in. Ephesians 6, verses 1 through 4, goes straight into how kids and parents should act. Obedience, honor, raising kids in the nurture and admonition of the Lord.
Yeah.
It's all right there. But I'm really curious about this first commandment with the promises thing. It even talks about long life and blessings. Is this really about kids just blindly obeying? Or is there something more to it?
You've hit on a key point, and this is where understanding, the historical context is so important. Back then, respecting your parents and elders, it wasn't just a suggestion.
Right.
It was fundamental to how their whole society worked. Imagine a world where respecting your parents was as important as paying taxes or obeying the law. It was that ingrained in their culture.
Wow, so it wasn't just about keeping kids in line. It was about keeping their whole society in order.
Exactly. The family was like a mini version of society. So a child honoring their parents wasn't just a personal thing.
Right.
It reflected their commitment to keeping their entire community stable.
Okay, that makes the promise part make a bit more sense.
Yeah.
If honoring your parents was seen as, upholding their society, then long life and blessings would naturally follow. It's like if everyone does their part, everything works better. But how does that work today? Family structures are different now, and our culture has changed.
Yeah.
Do these old instructions still make sense in our modern world?
That's the big question, right? And while we don't live in a world where respecting your parents is the law, I think the big idea behind it is still really important. This idea of mutual respect, of parents creating a good environment where kids feel loved and guided instead of controlled, that idea is always going to be relevant,
Yeah.
no matter what the culture is. Think about it. Ephesians 6.4 doesn't just say discipline your kids.
Right.
It says to raise them in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. Even if you don't think about it religiously, that phrase means creating an environment where kids can grow and understand.
So it's less about parents being the boss and more about building a relationship with their kids based on values and respect. That makes sense to me, even though I'm not a parent. It makes me think about my relationships with older people I respect, like mentors,
Yeah,
and how those relationships work.
that's it. It's about recognizing that good relationships, no matter what the roles are built on respect and wanting to help each other grow.
Okay, so we've got this fascinating idea of family being like a mini society. Now, as we move to Ephesians 6.59, things get a bit tougher to talk about. We're suddenly in the world of servants and masters.
Oh, yeah.
And honestly, reading it today, it's a bit hard to swallow.
Yeah,
Slavery is such a loaded topic, so how are we even supposed to approach this part?
you are right to point that out. This is where we need to be really careful not to judge this old text by today's standards. It's super important to remember that slavery was a normal thing back then, and Paul was talking to people who were living in that world.
So he wasn't saying slavery was okay, but trying to give advice to people who were stuck in that system.
Right. He was trying to show them how to live out their faith, even when society was so unfair. And what's interesting is that he doesn't just tell servants to obey your master.
Right.
He adds this really important part. Not with eye service, as men pleasers,
Okay.
but as the servants of Christ doing the will of God from the heart. He's telling those servants to find meaning and dignity in their work, even when their situation is awful.
It's almost like he's saying, yeah, your life might be terrible, but you can still choose how you approach your work, how you find something good in it.
That's a great way to put it. He's encouraging them to rise above their situation and find a bigger purpose in what they do.
And what about the instructions to the masters? Does he just tell them to be nice to their slaves? Or is it deeper than that?
It is more than that. He tells masters to treat their servants fairly, knowing they also answer to a higher power in heaven. Remember, this was a radical idea back then.
Oh, wow.
Telling a master that he was accountable to someone else, even to his slaves in a way, would have been a really tough thing to hear.
So he's not just saying be nice. He's suggesting a whole new way to think about power and responsibility. I'm starting to see how, even though the context is so different, these verses could still apply to our workplaces today.
Yeah,
Maybe it's not about literal masters and servants anymore, but about how we deal with those in power, how we find purpose in our work, no matter what our job is.
You got it. Think about that idea of working as unto the Lord. What if we all did our jobs that way? Whether you're a CEO or a cashier, a doctor or a teacher, what if we all worked with that same sense of dedication and higher purpose?
That's a powerful thought. It takes the focus off just getting paid or having a fancy title and puts it on the impact we're making, on how we treat the people around us.
And to really drive that point home, Ephesians 6:8 says, knowing that whatsoever good thing any man doeth, the same shall he receive of the Lord, whether he be bond or free. It's a reminder that what we do has value, no matter what our job or social status is. Every good thing we do is noticed and rewarded, even if we can't see it right away.
Wow, that really hits home. It's like he's saying, don't worry about who's above or below you. Just focus on doing good work, being a positive force, and know that what you do matters.
And that brings us to what might be the most visually exciting, even cinematic part of Ephesians 6.
You mean the armor of God metaphor? I gotta admit, this is the part I've always been most curious about. It feels like we're about to discover a hidden treasure chest.
It does have that kind of mystery, doesn't it? But before we dive into the armor itself, we got to understand why this metaphor is even there. Ephesians 6:1-12 says, finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places.
Whoa, hold on a second. Principalities, powers, rulers of the darkness.
Yeah.
This sounds like something straight out of like a fantasy novel. Are we going on a quest to fight demons and dragons?
Well, not literally, of course, but there's definitely a feeling of an epic battle here. What Paul's saying is that as believers, we're always in a fight, not against physical enemies, but against spiritual forces that are trying to, mess with our faith, our values, our overall well-being.
So it's more of an internal fight, a battle against negativity, temptation, or even like self-doubt.
You got it. It's about realizing that we all face challenges that are deeper than what we can see, challenges that need inner strength and spiritual resilience to overcome. And that's where the armor of God comes in.
Okay, I'm definitely hooked. Let's break down this armor piece by piece. First up, we've got the belt of truth. What does that even mean? Is it about knowing all the facts and figures, or is it something more than that?
It's more than just facts. It's about actually living them. The belt of truth means being grounded in what you believe and what you know is right. It's about integrity, about matching your actions to your beliefs and sticking to your values even when it's hard.
So it's like having a moral compass that guides you, an inner sense of knowing what's right that helps you figure out life's tough choices.
That's a good way to put it. The belt of truth keeps you centered, focused on what truly matters.
Okay, that makes sense. Next, we've got the breastplate of righteousness. Is that like a shield for your heart?
You could say that. It's about protecting your heart and mind from bad things. It's about living with a clear conscience, making good choices, and trying to do what's right even when nobody's watching.
So it's not just about avoiding doing wrong things, but actively trying to live a good life, a life that matches your deepest values.
Exactly. The breastplate of righteousness protects you from feeling guilty or messed up inside, letting you move through the world confidently.
I like that. It's not about being perfect, but about trying to live in a way that feels true to yourself and to your moral compass. Okay, what about the shoes? Ephesians 6:15 talks about the preparation of the gospel of peace. What kind of shoes are we talking about here?
Those are some interesting shoes. They represent being ready to share your faith, to spread a message of hope and peace. But even if you don't see it religiously, I think it's about the power of talking to people and connecting with them. It's about being ready to have meaningful conversations, to build bridges between people, and to promote understanding and peace when you interact with others.
So it's not about forcing your beliefs on others, but about going into conversations with a peaceful attitude, being willing to listen and share your perspective in a way that brings people together, not tears them apart.
You got it. It's about walking a path of peace, both in your own life and how you interact with the world.
I like that image. It makes me think about how I handle tough conversations, how I choose to react to negativity, and how I could be a force for peace and understanding in my own little part of the world. Okay, we've got the belt, the breastplate, and the shoes. What's next?
Now we come to what's probably the most famous part of the armor, the shield of faith. Ephesians 6:16 says, above all, taking the shield of faith, wherewith you shall be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked.
Okay, now that sounds pretty intense. Fiery darts of the wicked. What are those exactly, and how does a shield of faith protect us from them?
Those fiery darts represent all the bad stuff that tries to get to us. Doubt, fear, negativity, temptation, even despair. The shield of faith is about holding on to a strong belief in something bigger than yourself, something that gives you strength, even when things are really tough.
So it's like a mental and emotional barrier to help you deflect all those bad thoughts and feelings.
Mm.
It helps you stay hopeful and positive, even when the world feels chaotic.
Exactly. The shield of faith doesn't mean you won't face tough times, but it helps you get through them,
Yeah,
knowing you have a source of strength to rely on.
that's powerful. It makes me think about those times when I've felt overwhelmed or discouraged and how holding on to even a little bit of hope can make all the difference.
It's that unwavering belief that keeps us going, that gives us the courage to keep going even when we feel like giving up. And that brings us to the helmet of salvation.
Ah, the helmet. Is this about protecting your head from like actual hits, or is there a deeper meaning?
It's about protecting your mind, your thoughts, your sense of who you are. The helmet of salvation represents having a strong foundation in what you believe,
Right.
a sense of purpose and security that protects you from negativity and self-doubt.
So it's like a mental force field that blocks those harmful thoughts and keeps you focused on what truly matters.
You got it. The helmet of salvation helps you stay clear-headed and focused on your purpose, even when everything around you is crazy and uncertain.
This is really speaking to me. It makes me think about how easy it is to get sucked into all the negativity in the world, to let fear and doubt cloud my judgment. But having that strong inner knowing, that unshakable belief in something bigger than myself, that's what keeps me grounded.
And it's not just blind faith or wishful thinking. It's about developing a resilient mindset, choosing to focus on the good and drawing strength from your beliefs, whatever they may be.
Okay, so we've got the belt, the breastplate, the shoes, the shield, and the helmet. What's the last piece of this armor?
The final piece is the sword of the Spirit, which, according to Ephesians 6:17, is the Word of God. This is your attack weapon, the tool you use to fight negativity and stand up for what's right.
So it's not about literally fighting, but about using truth and wisdom to overcome challenges and stand up for what you believe in.
Exactly. The sword of the Spirit is about using your voice, your knowledge, and your convictions to speak up for what's right, to challenge injustice, and to promote truth and understanding.
It's about using your words to build things up, not tear them down, to inspire people instead of discouraging them. It's about fighting for good in the world. I love that.
And what's even cooler is that this sword can be many things. It could be the actual words of the Bible, if that's what speaks to you.
Right.
But it could also be wise words from people you respect, quotes that inspire you, even your own inner voice telling you to be truthful and brave.
So it's about finding those things that inspire you and give you wisdom, those things that empower you to speak your truth, to stand up for what's right, and to use your voice to make a positive impact on the world.
Absolutely. The sword of the Spirit is all about using the power of words, knowledge, and conviction to fight for what you believe in and make a difference in the world.
Wow, we've just gone through a whole arsenal of spiritual weapons. From the belt of truth to the sword of the Spirit, this metaphor is so vivid and powerful, I feel like I can take on anything.
And that's exactly the point. The armor of God is about equipping yourself with the mental, emotional, and spiritual tools you need to handle life's ups and downs, to face your fears, and to live a life of purpose and meaning.
Okay, so we've got all this armor, we're ready to face those principalities and powers, but something tells me there's more to it than just putting on this metaphorical gear and charging into battle. What am I missing?
You're right, there's one really important piece we haven't talked about yet, and it's probably the strongest weapon of all.
You mean prayer. Ephesians 6:18 specifically mentions praying always with all prayer and supplication in the Spirit. But does that mean we're supposed to be praying all the time, like nonstop?
That's a great question, and I think it's less about the actual act of praying and more about having a connection with something bigger than yourself.
So it's about keeping that connection open, knowing there's a higher power guiding and supporting you, even when you're not actually saying words.
Exactly. It's about bringing that sense of spirituality into your everyday life, letting it guide your choices, actions, and how you interact with the world.
That makes it feel a lot more accessible, even for someone who might not be very religious. It's about finding that connection, that source of strength and inspiration in whatever way works for you.
And remember, prayer can be done in many ways. There's asking for help or guidance.
Right.
There's praying for other people. And there's giving thanks, recognizing the good things in your life. It's about finding those things that help you tap into peace and connection, whatever those might be.
This is already a lot to take in. We've gone from family and work to spiritual battles and now the power of prayer. I need a minute to process all of this.
Take your time, and we'll be back soon to finish up the last few verses of Ephesians 6.
All right, I'm ready for more. We covered so much already. Families, work, battling those spiritual forces with the armor of God. Now we're getting into prayer. It's amazing how much is packed into just this one chapter.
It really is. And there's more. Ephesians 6.18 also talks about watching thereunto with all perseverance. It's not just about praying. It's about being engaged, like really paying attention and being persistent in nurturing that connection to something bigger than yourself.
So it's like being constantly aware, mindful in how we live, always seeking guidance, being thankful, and staying connected to that source of strength.
Exactly. And that leads us to the last few verses of Ephesians 6, where we get a more personal look at Paul's own life and what he was doing. He's writing this from prison, but he's not focused on himself. He cares about those Ephesians. In verses 19 and 20, he asks them to pray for him, not to get him out of prison, but that he can find the right words to preach about the mystery of the gospel.
That's incredible. He's going through so much, yet he's worried about spreading this message. What does he mean by the mystery of the gospel, though?
It's about how God's plan of salvation is revealed through Jesus Christ. Back then, this was a radical idea, like Jews and Gentiles together, being reconciled to God through faith in Jesus. That was revolutionary. It challenged everything they knew about society and religion and offered a way for everyone to be united.
So even in chains, Paul was like a revolutionary fighting for hope and unity that went beyond all the divisions of his time.
Absolutely. He saw himself as an ambassador in bonds, representing Christ even while he was locked up. His commitment to his mission, even when he was being persecuted, is really inspiring.
Makes you think about what we're willing to stand up for, what messages we're spreading in our own lives. Are we as brave and bold in our beliefs as Paul was?
That's a deep question to think about. In verses 21 and 22, Paul mentions Tychicus, a trusted friend he's sending to the Ephesians. Tychicus is going to tell them how Paul's doing and offer them comfort.
It's like he wants to make sure they're okay, stay connected even though he's far away. It shows how important community is, having people who support and encourage us, especially when things are tough.
It's a beautiful reminder that we don't go through tough times alone. And then in verses 23 and 24, we get the final blessings. Paul wishes peace, love, and faith on them, emphasizing how important sincere love for Jesus is. He ends with this powerful statement, "Grace be with all them that love our Lord Jesus Christ in sincerity."
It's a nice, hopeful way to end. This reminder that grace is there for everyone who seeks it.
It ties everything together, right? We've talked about family, work, spiritual battles, and now we're reminded of grace, this unearned gift that helps and strengthens us.
It's like going from the everyday stuff to the extraordinary all in one chapter.
And what's amazing is that Ephesians 6 has something for everyone, no matter what you believe. You can see it from a religious view or just find inspiration in the ideas of resilience, doing what's right, and being strong in spirit. It's relevant to all of us today.
I totally agree. This deep dive has been eye-opening. Family, work, prayer, standing up for what you believe in, God's grace, we've covered it all.
And remember those FAQs we talked about earlier? They really helped explain some of the more complex stuff. Like, they offered different ways to look at the text. They were like mini study guides, highlighting key verses and explaining them so even the tough parts made sense.
Yeah, they were super helpful. It's amazing how these ancient words can still have such a powerful impact on us today. It feels like we've only just started to understand Ephesians 6. There's so much more to explore.
There always is. But that's what's so great about these deep dives. They make you curious, they make you want to learn more, and they send you off on your own adventure of discovery.
And who knows, maybe we'll come back to Ephesians 6 someday and do another deep dive, finding even more meaning and wisdom in it.
I'd love that. But for now, I hope this has sparked something in you, maybe a renewed sense of purpose, a better understanding of these timeless ideas, or even just a desire to build up your own spiritual armor.
What about you? What really stuck with you from all of this? What's the one piece of wisdom you're going to take away?
That's a tough one. There's so much to choose from. But for me, I think it's the whole idea of the armor of God. It's just such a vivid and empowering way to think about facing life's challenges with strength and resilience. I love the image of putting on those pieces of armor, truth, righteousness, faith, all of it, to prepare myself for whatever comes my way. It makes me feel like I can handle anything. How about you?
That is a tough one. There are so many great takeaways, but I think For me, it's got to be the concept of working as unto the Lord. Whether we're CEOs or students, parents, or artists, that idea really resonates. It makes even the most ordinary tasks feel more important. It gives them a sense of spiritual purpose.
That's beautiful, and it reminds me of that powerful line from Ephesians 6:8. Whatever good thing anyone does, that they will receive back from the Lord. It's such a motivating reminder that our hard work matters, no matter how small it may seem.
Exactly. And that message is something that can lift us all up and inspire us.
It really can.
And, it connects so well with the idea of prayer. We talked earlier about watching thereunto with all perseverance. It's not just about putting on the armor and forgetting about it. It's about staying vigilant, aware, and constantly working on those spiritual muscles.
It's like a daily practice, a conscious effort to develop those virtues and stay connected to something bigger than ourselves.
Exactly. That's what makes Ephesians 6 so timeless. It's not just a bunch of rules. It's a guide to living a life of purpose, meaning, and resilience, regardless of what life throws our way.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
So before we wrap up this amazing deep dive, I have one last question for you and for our listeners. If you could choose one piece of the armor of God to really focus on strengthening in your life, which would it be and why? I'll go first since I kind of surprised you with that one. For me, I think it'd be the shield of faith. In a world with so much uncertainty and negativity, it's more crucial than ever to hold on to that unwavering belief in something bigger than ourselves, something that gives us hope and strength to keep going. It's like a mental and emotional shield that helps me deflect those fiery darts of doubt and despair. What about you? Yeah, it's amazing how focusing on just one piece can change how we deal with life's challenges. But what about you, listening right now? Which piece of armor feels most important to you? What are you going to work on strengthening as you go through life? It really makes you think, huh.
It does, and it's not like you pick one and you're done. Life changes, so the armor we need might change too, right?
That makes sense. Like we have this spiritual toolbox and we can grab the right tool whenever we need it.
Right. But we got to know about these tools, practice with them, so we're ready when things get tough.
It all comes back to that idea of watching and being persistent, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's a journey, this whole spiritual growth and resilience thing.
It is. And what I love about Ephesians 6 is that it's like a map. It helps us understand not only the tough stuff, but also what we have to help us through it.
Yeah, like a guidebook for those internal struggles, those invisible forces that can feel overwhelming.
Exactly. And whether you see it from a religious point of view or just find inspiration in being resilient, ethical, and strong in spirit, there's something in Ephesians 6 for everyone.
I think that's what's been so cool about this deep dive. We didn't just explain the words. We looked at how these ancient ideas can still help us today, no matter what we believe.
Yeah, we did. We looked at families, work, prayer, standing strong in what you believe in, and God's grace. What a journey.
It really was. And those FAQs from the stuff we read were so helpful, like little clues to help us understand each verse.
They really were. They helped us see how these old ideas connect to our lives now and gave us different ways to think about things.
But I still feel like we just scratched the surface. There's always more to find, more to learn in these words.
That's the beauty of it, isn't it? It makes you curious, makes you want to learn more, and sends you off on your own path to discover things.
Maybe someday we'll come back to Ephesians 6 and dive even deeper, finding even more meaning and wisdom.
I would love that. But for now, I hope this deep dive lit a fire in you, whether it's a new sense of purpose, a deeper understanding of these timeless principles, or even just a desire to build your own spiritual armor.
So as you go about your day, remember what we learned from Ephesians 6. Put on that armor, stand up for what you believe in, and don't forget the power of connection, both to something bigger than yourself and to the people around you.
And keep searching, keep learning, keep diving deep. There's a whole world of wisdom out there waiting to be discovered.
Thanks for joining us on this amazing journey. Until next time, stay curious, stay engaged, and keep your minds open to new possibilities.